All right, so previously we covered the threshold customization. In this video, we are going to be going through the stacking and padding options for the time series visual. Now, as always, in the sample report, you already have some pre-configured variations of the charts. And in this case, we also have additional switches which allow you to transition between those different stacking modes. Like in this case, by default, you open up just a regular stack, but you can as easily transition to a 100% proportional stack, zero-based stack, or also to cases where you have clustering and stacking in the same visual. But for us, what we're going to be doing is going into the training view and actually building the visual and going through the formatting options for these stacks. All right, first things first, let's add an instance of the time series visual. Let's resize it, disable the background and the title as always. And for the setup, we're going to go for new date. And the two series that I'm going to be using in this case are actually going to be payout, and the second one is going to be budget. So by default, you can see that every single series that I added to the visual is being represented as a column, and it's essentially being created as a separate stack. So every single series has their own stack number. And if we go into the formatting options and open up, for example, series 2, and scroll down almost to the bottom of it, right here, you can find a setting called stack. And you can see that series 2 is on stack 2. So the principle here is that series 1 is stack 1, series 2 is stack 2, and so forth. If you want to create a stack column chart, all you have to do is just make sure that both series are using the same stack number. In this case, since I already know that I only have two series, and this is the second series that I opened up, I want to stack it on series 1. There you go. That's how you create a stack column chart. Now, what else you can do here is you can customize what sort of stacking are you actually using for the visual. So if we scroll up a bit more, we can find a separate tab called Stack Settings. And if we open that up, you can see that we have mode, separate negative data, and also draw full area settings. As for the mode, normal is the default one that's always going to be used. Next option that you have here is 100% proportional. One thing to remember though is whenever you are using a 100% proportional value, you also need to make sure that you readjust the primary y-axis and change the value type. Because otherwise, right now you can see by default, it's still taking the currency as the main symbol for it. Now, the third option that we're actually going to be investing a little bit more time into is going to be zero-based. When I do this, initially it seems like I only have one series available. That is because single series and second series essentially have their own drawing orders. So the further you go into the series, the more it goes into the front. So what I want to do here is open up series 2 configuration, scroll down and find a setting called display order. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this down one value. So now you can actually see that I have both columns available. But still, when you look at the chart, it's really hard to understand whether this is normal stack or zero-based stack. The only option really right now is if you hover over a column and you see the tooltip, you can actually, based on the values, see what sort of stacking mode is being used. But that's not what we really want to achieve there. We want to make sure that the end user can easily identify that this is a zero-based stack. So what we're going to be doing is, in this case, we're actually going to be closing series 2, and we will open series 1 customization. That's the payout. That's the pink series right here. So what I'm going to be doing is scrolling down a bit more and finding a setting called width percent. And for this one, I'm going to adjust it to 50%. So now, essentially, I have a column within a column. They're both starting at 0 values. So this is a great way on how you can actually compare actuals versus the target. This is just one setup. There are other variations and other configurations how you can achieve similar results. For example, another way on how you could do this is if I keep this on 100, but for the second series, instead of using the full color, I'm actually going to just adjust it slightly. I'm going to make sure that the outline for the budget has a line around it. There you go. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker so it's easier to see, right? So that's one. And the second thing is I'm going to remove the opacity or lower it. In this case, I'm going to make it like 20%. So now you can actually see the line for the target. The only issue here is because we previously adjusted the series orders, the lines, these lines right here next to the columns, they're kind of getting cut off when you go to the next series. So if you want to avoid that, just make sure you bring it back in front again. So if this doesn't suit you, you can also completely remove the transparency. So this allows you to have sort of like a target box and the actual fill color. So there are multiple ways on how you can style these series to achieve the wanted result. Now, whenever you have multiple series within a single visual, let's say if we go back to the series visual right here on the main page, and let's go for a combination of clusters and stacks. So open up the formatting options. We're going to close series formatting. We're going to close also the stacking options and open up column padding. You have 4 settings here. You have the column padding and you also have the cluster padding. Now, column padding is going to increase the indents for every single column that you have within the visual on the left or the right hand side. And the cluster padding is going to allow you to create the gaps for specific groups. All right, so that's going to be it for the stacking and padding customization, and I'll see you in the next video.